Want to learn all about the FPHL? If so, you're going to want to watch till the end because we're going to cover it all for you, ranging from the league's history to the level and caliber of players, all the way to what it's like playing in the league, fan bases, and importantly, how much money players make. So whether you're a player looking to play in the minors yourself or you're just a curious fan, by the end of this video, you're going to be informed in all things FPHL. Let's get pucks deep and dive in. Starting out, the FPHL, the Federal League, the Fed, was founded back in 2010. The league's original name has changed since inception, but the league itself has stayed intact. From 2010 to 2019, the league was called the Federal Hockey League, better known as the FHL. But since 2019, the league rebranded to its current name, the FPHL, for the Federal Prospects Hockey League. What's the level of play and caliber of players like at the FPHL level? This is an important section to cover as it's one that's a bit misunderstood. For starters, if you look at most FPHL rosters today, you'll find a blend of players from the following 5 to 6 places. The first of those being college hockey, ranging from a couple D1 NCAA players and more D3 players all the way down to some higher end players coming out of ACHA. The next is juniors. A few guys on different rosters will make the jump. Maybe university route isn't their thing, so you'll find some junior players straight to FPHL. The third here is major junior. It's not the most common, but in recent years, there have been a few more players that played major junior, so OHL, WHL, QMJHL, including a few goalkeepers that have been playing minutes in the league. The fourth is minor pro league, so players getting sent down from the coast to the SP and then SP to the Fed. The fifth is Europe. This is less common. You'll still find a player or two on some different FPHL rosters with some games played in Europe, though it's more common for players to go the other direction from North America to Europe. The last is just straight walk-ons. Generally, this would be for a token fighter or a player who might draw some fans. Sure, a number of teams hold quote-unquote free agent camps, but this isn't generally how most teams find their players. They're all coming from the places that we've just mentioned above. Anyone telling you differently is probably trying to sell you some snake oil. So when it comes to the level of play in the league, a roster comprising of the above gives you a pretty decent lineup at this level. In the FPHL, teams don't all have deep roster depth, so top couple lines and deep pairings may do the bulk of producing, whereas maybe the bottom line aren't getting as many minutes, but this really depends on each team. The league is definitely getting better each year, and don't think that just because it's single A that anyone can play here. That's not the case. Just because you rip it up at your local beer league doesn't mean you can immediately kick it with players here. Maybe you can, and there's always exceptions, but it's definitely not super common, especially today. We've even seen a number of players with good college and pro experience even show up to main camps in the league and get outcompeted for roster spots, or just get waived mid-season for a multitude of reasons. It's basic supply and demand in the minors. Each year, more quality players aim to keep playing, and there's only a handful of teams. In the Fed, there's a little less impact of guys getting sent down from the SP to the Fed, as there are one level above it from the coast to the SP. But it's still a competitive environment if you want to stick on a roster here for any duration. So what's it like playing in the league? That's a solid question, and this is completely going to depend on two things: which team it is and who you're talking to. In general, the majority of FPHL teams are located in small cities in the eastern half of the United States, from New England all the way down to the Gulf of Mexico. Based on our experience, both the organization's reputation paired with the team's location are some of the most important factors when it comes to overall player satisfaction. Let's say it's mid-January and you just finished a 3 games and 3 night series, followed by a 13-hour bus ride back home. Which view on the next day are you going to enjoy more on your day off? This one in a cold northern city or a nice view of the beach on the Gulf of Mexico? No shade against teams in the north. We've met some awesome players and there's some really professional staff and organizations there. But if you don't like shoveling snow and negative 6.9 degree temps, a few of the locations might not be your first choice and they could impact your decision if that's what you're into. From a lot of our recent conversations with players, the league has definitely worked hard to step up its professionalism and perception, especially some of the newer teams. But with tight margins, Fed things are still bound to happen in the Fed. Many years back, you'd hear some crazy stories about guys sleeping in Harry Potter closets, and I'm sure that still happens to some extent, but hopefully it's less so now than it was maybe 10 years ago. Today, things still happen, whether it's a bus breaking down on the way to an opposing game, token fighters in the league racking up gigantic penalty minutes, or even fun things like one of the most charismatic player owners in league's history chugging a beer Stone Cold Steve Austin style after getting tossed. It's definitely entertaining, and you're bound to see it all in the Fed. Some of these stories are awesome. Even the negative ones, like a bus breaking down, will probably frustrate players involved in the moment that day, but they'll all certainly make for great stories a decade from now. Moving on, let's talk about fans and fan attendance numbers. The top few teams in the league consistently draw anywhere from 3,000 to 4,000 fans per home game. Teams in the middle will average anywhere from 1,000 to 3,000, and the bottom couple teams average just under 1,000 fans per home game. One quick note is that a few of the arenas that are smaller in capacity maybe don't hold the same number of fans, so don't let it fool you. A lot of these arenas can still get pretty rowdy with locals show up for games, so it can still be pretty fun in some of those environments. Moving on from here, how much money do players make in the Fed? This is a good question, and it's going to differ per each team and even season to season, but the average player makes around a couple $100 per week tops. Top and veteran players can make a little bit more, and honestly, a lot of teams have added setups with players where they can make some extra money on the side, whether that's through coaching, working part-time out of the rink, or a number of players we spoke with even do online schooling, master's programs as they continue to play minor pro. In the offseason, the majority of players will work jobs and train hard so that they can save, and that affords them the ability to have this set up during the season to then just focus on their hockey. Throughout the season, the day-to-day training schedule for Fed teams may not be as demanding as an NHL team's, but they still go about their business as professionals, from high-tempo daily practices to team workouts, community events and involvement throughout the week, and much more. It's certainly a full schedule. As expected, many players in the league have aspirations and aims to move up to the higher levels, whether in North America or Europe, and the best way for them to accomplish that is through performing as best as they can in the Fed. We hope the league and the individual clubs within it continue doing their best to run their organizations as professionally as possible while treating players as best they can, whether it's player safety on the ice or setup and amenities away from the arena. We hope you're able to learn a few things from this video, and if you're a player, are you driven enough to play at the next level?